So, thank you very much. And now, not the last but not the least, we have another lady who is really supporting young people. Actually, since 2 years, we have had several conferences about peace. The first was in October 24. The next one was last year in summer. Mrs. Hungerlaender is councillor of the city of Vienna and also an initiator and director, co-director of an organization for peace and development. And this is in her function that she is here. And we are very grateful. She always supports young people. And also you have a program in Vienna for young people, migrants. These young migrants coming to Vienna, that they learn the language and that they get education so they can properly integrate in our city. And this is hard work and very important work. And we are very grateful that Mrs. Hungerlaender is today here. Also, she is working and also she has a child at home, but still she took the time to be here. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants to this remarkable project. First of all, I would like to thank you for this impressive presentation of your project and even more importantly for the courage behind it. You impressively reported of your learnings during the project, and what you are doing is living proof that peace can work. In a world that so often tells us otherwise, you are a bright light. Your work reminds me of a line from a German rock band called Die Ärzte, and this may be the first time a rock band has ever been quoted in this distinguished room, but the lyrics are remarkable and they address the youth with this very line. It is not your fault that the world is the way it is. It would only be your fault if you allowed the world to remain that way. Your generation, my generation, the generation of my parents and of your grandparents, all of us were born into circumstances we did not create. But every generation, once it is old enough to speak, to act, to vote, to fight, and yes, to stretch out a hand, has to ask itself, do we build together or do we destroy? What kind of world will we leave to the generation that comes after us? Is it, for example, the return of Realpolitik, as Mr. Ambassador already mentioned it? Well, that could almost be the headline of our time. Hard power instead of soft power. Rearmament instead of multilateralism. And first and foremost, the return of a dangerous idea. I can, therefore I may. And this is a dangerous idea indeed, since the things humanity is capable of doing are becoming ever more extraordinary. Just think of what we can do. We can cure diseases that would have killed people only a few generations ago. We can speak to someone on the other side of the planet within seconds. We can create artificial intelligence, and we can build truly devastating weapons. Humanity can build so much. We can build technologies, institutions, weapons. But when will we finally learn to build lasting peace? To answer this question, let me make quite a leap with you from a German rock band to the Holy Father. In his recently published encyclical Magnifica Humanitas, Pope Leo XIV criticizes the return of Realpolitik, of what he calls a kind of false realism, a way of thinking that war is increasingly presented to us as inevitable, almost as a necessity of our time. He challenges a view of history in which war becomes the normal condition of humanity and peace merely an exception. And he calls it irresponsible when this false realism plants resignation in people's minds, the belief that war is ultimately inevitable, that dialogue is naive, and that lasting peace may be beautiful, but unrealistic. And indeed, we are witnessing a weakening of precisely those institutions that were created after the catastrophes of the last century to resist that very logic. Multilateralism is losing strength, common rules are being questioned. National interests and the right of the stronger are once again gaining ground. And suddenly we find ourselves in a chicken and egg problem. What came first? The weakening of our common institutions or the return of national power politics? What came first, the fear of the other side arming itself, or our own decision to arm? And once such a downward spiral has begun, can it still be stopped? The false realist would probably say no, as if history were nothing more than an unchangeable chain of action and reaction. One impulse inevitably produces the next. Rearmament produces rearmament. Violence produces counter-violence. Mistrust produces mistrust. As if we had no choice, and as if there were no such thing as free will. It is precisely this fatalism that the encyclical rejects. Instead, it offers us a biblical image, the rebuilding of the destroyed city of Jerusalem in the book of Nehemiah, where Jerusalem lies in ruins. And that image is painfully relevant today because people in our own time know what it means to see cities destroyed, homes disappear, families torn apart, and what generations have built lost within a matter of hours. But the story of Nehemiah does not end with destruction. It is a story of rebuilding. And that rebuilding is not accomplished by one great leader alone. It succeeds because many different people take responsibility. They build together with humility and with dignity, understanding each other's views just as you did. To choose building over destruction, that is ultimately an act of free will. And once we begin to speak about building, our chicken and egg problem changes as well. The decisive question is no longer simply what came first, because something always came first. A wound, an attack, a betrayal, an injustice, an act of violence followed by another act of violence. But if we want to rebuild, we cannot remain forever trapped in the question of who started it. At some point, what came first must be followed by forgiveness. And it was already been put in perfect words. It's about fixing the future, not fixing the past. And then an entirely different question arises. What comes first now, my outstretched hand or yours? For me, that is where the great hope embodied in your project becomes visible, and you fantastically outlined it. Peace doesn't mean that we all think alike. It doesn't mean that conflict disappears. And peace does not require us to forget what has happened. But peace does require us to continue seeing the other person as a human being. It requires us to refuse the belief that violence must inevitably produce more violence. It requires us to insist that history is not entirely predetermined, that human beings can choose, that we can rebuild after destruction, that we can extend a hand even when nobody can guarantee that it will be taken. So you have extended a hand, and let me return one last time to the German rock band. It is not your fault that the world is the way it is. And if the world remains as it is, it will not be for lack of your courage to change it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hungerlaender. You mentioned so many important points, and we will have to catch this speech because it's really worth to read again. Also, you're coming back to the Old Testament, and that's actually connecting, I think, all of us here in the room. This is by history we are connected, actually. By history we are connected. We go back long enough. We all come from one family, kind of, yeah. So just to look back long enough, far enough. And now, before we reach to our last speaker, we have one other gentleman. He wanted to come here, but in the end it turned out he would have arrived when we are finished. This is Mr. Labinot Cocaj. He is from Youth and Students for Peace. He's from Balkan. He's a young person, 18 years old, and he's working in the Balkans with peace conferences and maybe some of you were there or knew about it. Last year they had a conference, and this year they're organizing it again. And so he prepared a video, and now we can watch the video. I asked Lilly, our technician, to try to show the video to us.
Greetings from Pristina. I am Labinot here representing YSP, and today I'm here to speak to you for the upcoming event of YSP, the Balkan International Youth Summit for Peace 2026, which will take place from 1 to 4 of October in Mitrovica, Kosovo. This summit is such close to my heart because it's just more than an international gathering. It is a beacon of hope and opportunity for Mitrovica, a city too often recognized for its ethnic division and symbolically separated by the Iber Bridge. Last year, in our inaugural edition, more than 120 young leaders from over 33 countries came together in Mitrovica. They witnessed firsthand that beside the headlines lies a different story, a city full of resilient people and potential to build lasting bridges of peace and cooperation. One of the highlights of the last year's edition was that we had the high-level presence in the opening ceremony, the two state presidents and the four municipal mayors, the mayor of North and South Mitrovica, the mayor, a deputy mayor of Lebosavich, and also the mayor of Preševa. It was the first time these four mayors were sitting together in the same room, and us, the youth, brought them together. Another highlight of the inaugural edition was the Synergy Assembly, where young innovators from Kosovo, Serbia, North Macedonia, Hungary, United Kingdom presented community peace projects that address pressing societal challenges in their societies which they have identified throughout the peace design training. Challenges such as deprivation, anti-corruption, mental health, quality education, community development, and much more. From all those projects that were presented, 5 of them were selected for implementation. And during the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026 period, the 5 community peace projects were implemented, reaching over 200 young people. Another wonderful part of this first night was the Peace Through My Culture, an unforgettable evening where cultures met through music, dances, and traditional celebrating diversity as a strength and a pathway to peace. And the day 2 started with high-level panels and discussions on good governance, anti-corruption, mental health, post-conflict recovery. Through these discussions with experts, policymakers, and practitioners, participants explored practical approaches to strengthen democratic participation, accountability, and regional cooperation. During the working sessions and action labs, participants started working together, collaboratively treating these topics and designing youth-led solutions. In the third day, we had the Peace Road Initiative, where we crossed the Iber Bridge and symbolically united the North and South Mitrovica. This year's summit theme is Youth as Peace Practitioners from Dialogue to Action. And different from the last year, together and alongside the topics such as good governance, anti-corruption, and mental health, we are also going to have the disinformation and no hate speech. One of the new things that we are going to bring in this year's edition are the World Cafe and the regional breakout sessions, together with high-level panels, interactive workshops, and the action labs. And during the fourth day of the summit, we're going to have again the Peace Road initiatives and the street basketball for peace. Unfortunately, Mitrovica's story is not an isolated one. Across the world, we see cities and societies who continue to face division, polarization, and conflict. That is why spaces like this summit are crucial. And let's not forget that real challenge and change begins with each of us, with the courage to listen, understand each other's differences, finding the common ground, and working together to shaping the future of our communities. We invite all of you to join us in Mitrovica. Let's come together, engage with inspiring voices who are shaping today's global conversation, share our experiences, ideas, and work collectively to transform challenges into opportunities for peace. We look forward to welcoming you in Mitrovica for the Balkan International Youth Summit for Peace 2026, from 1 to 4 of October, from Mitrovica to the world. Thank you very much.
Really been very happy to be here, and I think next time you come, we have to arrange it better that you can take time enough to be here in time. Yeah, thank you very much for showing the video, Lilly. And now we come to our concluding speaker, Mr. Stephen Aiello, the last, but definitely not the least important, the most important person, because through Mr. Stephen Aiello, we got to know about your program, about Debate for Peace 3 years ago, and we were totally excited from the first moment on and moved for this initiative and for bringing young people together, building the future that they want. So now, dear Stephen, may we ask you for your comment?
Yes, thank you. And I'll just share that I bumped into Labinot 2 weeks ago at the UN in Kosovo, UNMIK. By complete coincidence, we had back-to-back meetings with the same person there. So the world is a lot smaller than we think. This particular delegation, our 5th annual delegation to the VIC, the UN in Vienna, the focus has been on bridging between Model United Nations and the UN. And over a dozen meetings with different UN agencies, missions, NGOs, civil society leaders, we've learned a lot as Model UNers, but I hope that today through the panel, we've also been able to teach a bit from our experience and inspire. A couple of days ago at the Irish Embassy, we were asked a question, what have you learned from your Model UN experience? My Model UN experience goes a few more years than the panelists. So almost 15 years of using Model UN as a peace-building tool in the Israeli-Palestinian context. It took me a little while to think about it, but then when I did answer, I said it's an almost contradictory two-part answer. Because on the one hand, from the last 14 years, I think that I've learned that the situation is a lot more complicated than I thought going in. And literally, daily, I'm still learning new pieces of this puzzle. There's just so many different layers. There's not two parts. There's 10 million different views. We have so many different communities and perspectives, and there's a lot of layers to unpack. And so you need the humility to go in knowing that you're going to learn every day. But at the same time, I think it's not as complicated as we think, because most or a large percentage of our friends, family, neighbors back home think that peace is impossible, that we're more likely to step foot on the moon than to reach peace in a nearly century-long intractable conflict. But when you think about it, and we look at our Model UN conferences, which are almost a heaven amidst this conflict, I think it's really just what you said. It's just about treating each other as humans, the basic respect to listen and empathize with one another as people, which is at the fundamentals of the UN. For me, this message didn't come from a rock song. It was a few weeks ago when I was taking the bus in Tel Aviv, and the impatient bus driver, which we have a lot of them, slammed the door shut in the face of a man who was just a little too slow getting on with his cart. And the man who was standing outside and didn't get on the bus, all I heard was his last words as the bus drove off. He said, "Imagine if I were your child." And it just struck me. Imagine if we lived life thinking that stranger, that person that you see on the news, that person who you're impacting or just not caring about, imagine if that was your child. Imagine if that was your parent. If that was someone that you cared about, and how differently we would live our lives. So just to conclude, I want to leave some action items. So please come and talk to us. Stay in touch. We compete at international Model UN conferences, so you may see us in other places. Please ask questions to learn. In Model UN, we love Model UN. There's a bad habit of asking questions that are just to make a point, but I think we also need to ask questions to really learn from the other person. And finally, some commercial pitch. We have a book on Amazon. This is the second book. Some of the amazing students you heard are actually published in it. Our third book will come out this summer, but you can find this on Amazon. Please buy it, read it, gift it to a friend. And if you are a teacher or youth or just like writing, you can also join and be in our fourth book. So please get in touch with about that. And I think just to conclude, I would say the one idea that I would like everyone to have about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, specifically our present and future, is that I think, unfortunately, the news sometimes portrays it as sort of a sports match where everyone's rooting for one side to win. And in my opinion, there's no winning unless we work together. And, you know, I'm not that old. They've been at it for a very long time. Armed conflict has been going on for nearly a century, and it hasn't achieved much for either side. So I think our shared future is really by sitting down and talking as they know how to do. And we just need to convince the rest of our societies, which is on us. That's on us Israeli and Palestinians to change our society so that we can sit and talk together and solve our issues. But I think that the rest of the world can be supportive in pushing us together, not further apart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for concluding. And yes, I think we had a lot of talking and listening to each other. I learned a lot again, to have a lot more patience and take the time it needs to solve situations, to solve conflicts, because once we have solved it, we have won something. If we don't take the time, we have to take it anyhow at some point. Thank you very much for your contributions, you young people, and we also wish you to have another 3 days in Vienna and maybe also a little bit of sightseeing, besides meeting interesting people. We are very happy you came this year. We invite you to come again, and please get in contact with us. And maybe also in between, we have opportunities to share each other's conferences or activities to include and encourage and multiply this energy. This is what I want to say, and thank you very much everyone for being here, taking the time to listen and learn, and also for our representative of Mexico, Mr. Zabalguitia. I think he had to leave. Probably is also Miss Migano. She said she has to apologize, but they're very intense schedule, but still she took the time to be here in the morning. And thank you very much, Miss Hungerlaender, that you are here and that you did spend all the time with us. And maybe there is some inspiration between your projects and this project for the future. There can be even more cooperation. Yeah? Young people have to stick together, then the world will change. Thank you very much.